Thank you for listening to Value-Based Care Insights, a podcast by Lumina Health Partners. In this series, host Daniel J. Marino, managing partner of Lumina, talks to top experts and thought leaders in healthcare to help you navigate on the journey to value-based care in an ever-changing landscape of the industry. The goal of this series is to bring you disruptive success strategies by leveraging Lumina's experiences, stories, and insights from working with health professionals and organizations across the country. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to invite you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and let us know what you think about the episode and any questions that are top of mind. Now let's get started.
Hello, I'm Daniel Marino. Welcome to another edition of Value-Based Care Insights. Over the past 10 years or so, as we all know, those of us that have been in healthcare for quite some time, there has been this ongoing trend of physicians joining hospitals, health systems in an employment structure. More and more independent physicians have really transitioned into employment for a whole host of reasons. Some of which has been, I think the business challenges that are associated with our industry are complex. Many physicians just, don't feel like they can survive or make the income that they can in an independent structure versus an employment structure. But yet there is a number of physicians who really feel like independence is the way to go. If you recall, a couple months back, I had a great physician colleague on the program, Dr. Asad Zaman. Dr. Zaman was an independent physician for a number of years and really weathered a lot of the storm around COVID and the transitions that had occurred around changes in reimbursement and contracting and so forth, and has done a really good job. But there are a few physicians who have gone the employment route and have decided, hey, I want to try independence. I'm entrepreneurial. I've got some ideas in terms of how I can make a successful move to independence, provide a lot of value for patients, so on and so forth. On the program today, we have one of those physicians. Dr. Carlos Torre is my guest today. He is a board-certified otolaryngologist, board-certified sleep medicine, and board-certified obesity medicine physician. He specializes in medical and surgical management of sleep disorders and optimizing nasal breathing for patients who have challenges with sleep. Dr. Torre, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dan. My pleasure to be here.
So, Dr. Torre, when we had met a number of months back, one of the things that you had mentioned to me was you felt like, given your specialties, you felt like, given your practice per se, that you can really make a difference to patients. You could really make a difference within the community. What were some of the reasons beyond that you were thinking that you wanted to make this move into independence?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question, Dan, because after I finished my training, I went into the academic setting, and it was something that I was really excited about because I thought it was an opportunity for me to continue developing my skills, get more experience. And in a field like mine of sleep surgery and sleep medicine, that is a relatively new field and where there are still many things that need to be defined in terms of how things are done and what we offer our patients. I thought it was a good opportunity to take that time to kind of discover those things by myself and come up with my own ideas.
I know, Carlos, when we were talking early on, we had talked about differentiating yourself, right? And, there's sleep disorder and there's a number of sleep clinics that are out there, but you had the vision of doing it different, right? And as we talked about creating a differentiator for patients and for contracting purposes, what were some of the things that you were thinking about to create that differentiator for yourself?
So I felt that having my own practice and being an independent provider definitely gave me the opportunity to be more flexible, have more autonomy, to do things my own way and in a way that I thought made sense for my patients and that actually allowed me to provide the type of care that I wanted to provide. And also, finally, I thought that being an independent provider also did not put any limit in your growth potential and designing a path that makes sense for where you want to take your practice and how you want to expand it. So that was my rationale behind developing my own independent practice rather than continuing being part of a group or joining a larger group where you're still part of a system. And to some degree, you might be a little bit limited.
I agree with that. I'll tell you, one of the positive aspects of owning your own business is the fact that you can move at your own pace, right? So you can move as fast as you want. You're responsible for the decisions, and with that responsibility of the decision becomes a level of risk and reward. And I would think for a physician who you're fairly young, you've got great credentials behind you, you've got a vision, you've got a market differentiator. It provides you a great opportunity to move pretty quick, right? And to really begin to penetrate the market and provide an excellent service for patients.
Yes, I agree. I mean, definitely as an independent provider, there are many challenges considering the healthcare world that we are navigating these days. Certainly, as an independent provider, you have that flexibility where, and it gives you what you mentioned, you can move fast in the direction that you want to because you don't have to consult with anyone regarding what you want to do. If you think that you have a good idea and it's something that you want to incorporate into your clinic or it's a service that you want to provide, you can just go ahead and do it. But certainly, there are some limitations being alone that can also slow down that process of growing. But I think there are ways, to go around that in order to be able to achieve your goals and do what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to get to those limitations in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about how you started to transition from the employed structure that you had to independence. Help our audience or take our audience through that journey. So when you decided to move into independence, what were the first couple of things that you did? Were you able to, did you just go out and hang your own shingle? Did you connect with a hospital? Did you connect with other physicians? What was some of the things that were really important on your journey into independence?
Well, I think the first step is really doing a lot of self-discovery and learning what you really want to do and what gives you job satisfaction. In my case, I had been planning for a long time that I wanted to develop my own practice. Certainly, it is something that is very challenging and in a way that you got to make the decision to take the risk. And I think that the reward after taking the risk is humongous. So I have been thinking about doing this for quite a while. And then when COVID hit, I thought it was a good opportunity for me to start planning and putting together all the ideas that I had and how I could start working on creating my own practice. So the first thing that I really did was to organize everything, all the knowledge and things that had worked for me, that had not worked for me, strategies that I wanted to design, services that I wanted to provide that I was not providing at the moment while I was in the academic setting, and putting everything together into a basic plan of how I wanted it to look like and how I wanted it to grow over the next couple of years. So that was really the first step that I took.
So the planning part of that, I think, was really key for you, right?
Yes, definitely. I think the planning. Yeah, the planning is key. So, I mean, if I, like anything in life, I think if you don't have a good plan, you kind of lose sight of where you want to go. So,
well, it helps you organize your thoughts, right? And understand what your priorities are.
Yes.
And, I think then you take a little bit more of a pragmatic approach in understanding where to start and mitigating some of the risks going forward.
I agree 100% with you. Yeah. Especially, if you don't have too much experience, which was my case. I really did not have any experience with any kind of business before I jumped into creating my practice. So that planning was a very important part of it. Obviously, being able to consult with people like you and the Lumina group was something that was very helpful because it gave me the guidance that I needed in order to determine what were the steps that I needed to take moving forward in order to make this a successful practice.
Yeah, that's great. I absolutely agree. So when you made the decision to transition out and you built your plan, right? What were kind of the next steps that you did, right? Because just getting out there and hanging up a shingle that says, "Hey, I'm here, come see me," probably isn't going to work, right? So what were the things that you did to start making your connection, especially as a specialist, right? I mean, you're your success is predicated on the referrals that you get either from the hospital or from physicians. What were the next thing that you did to make yourself known in the community?
Well, the good thing is that I had been in the community where I'm working for 5 years already. So I felt like I had a strong referral basis from other physicians and dentists. And also I had a significant number of patients from that area that also, had been seeing me for several years. So they knew me already. So for me, that transition was something that I was not too concerned about because I knew that I was not going to start from zero. I knew that I already had a strong basis of patient referral that could help me start my clinic when I went independent. But definitely the cultivation of those relationships is key. And that's something that I try to work on since I started my practicing back 5 years ago. And giving, the referring physicians, always having a good communication with them, trying to work together in establishing goals in the treatment plans that we're designing for our patients and trying to provide a good service for our patients as well. And then, at the level of the patients as well, trying to do the same thing, right? So that they feel that they're taken care of and that they're getting the best quality of care. I think that's something that has been key. And that's something that I started working on even before I decided to make the move. And that I think that we need to continue working on, on a daily basis in order to continue growing and expanding the practice.
Yeah. Did you transition to a new hospital? I mean, I would assume then you said you were with an academic setting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, you're still not with that academic setting, right? You transitioned to a new hospital or at least affiliated with a new hospital?
Yes. So my relationship with the hospital that I work at right now, or I don't work for the hospital, I basically have privileges at the hospital where I can operate. I see consults and I can provide service, but I don't have any ties to the hospital that where I'm not employed by the hospital in any way or the hospital network of the hospital that I work for.
Yeah. So I think from a hospital perspective, I mean, that's a perfect setting, right?
Yeah.
That's a perfect situation because they get a strong physician such as yourself. They're not necessarily, they don't have to employ you. They're probably providing some resources to support your practice, mm-hmm. but you're fulfilling a pretty big need for them. And I think from then your perspective, to have that alignment with the hospital obviously is what's going to create your referral base and really position you strong within the community. Is that kind of on track?
I agree. I've been lucky that at the hospital where I work and in the area where I'm providing care, there are not too many people with my specialty. And that helps in that I don't have a lot of competition in terms of consults or patient referrals. So definitely that helps a lot. And so it's a win-win situation for everyone because I get those referrals, but then I'm providing a service to the hospital that they didn't have before.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that probably supported what you had talked about earlier. You're a differentiator in the market, right? I mean, didn't sound like there were too many physicians that were providing the same level of service that you did around sleep disorders and so forth. And that, that helped, right? Because then, you created a niche for yourself, aligning yourself with that hospital.
Yeah. I mean, the support from the hospital, there's no doubt that helps a lot. I think that in terms of practice development and creating my own clinic and developing my own niche, it helps the volume of patients that I get from the hospital, but you have to be able as an independent provider to offer a different kind of service that is attractive for patients and that makes you different from everyone else around there. And I think that's something on my specialty. I've been lucky that there aren't too many sleep surgeons in my area, and definitely many sleep clinics do not provide an integrated care for these patients that includes the surgical, the clinical aspect of it. So that helps. But like I was saying, I think it is important the combination of both, getting that support from the hospital network, but at the same time, you need to offer something that is attractive for the patients and the other referring physicians to send you patients and to have patients come into your clinic to make an appointment, because you can offer something that they cannot find in too many other places.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, what you've really done is you've leveraged yourself and built your brand and did it in a way that you did it around really your certifications. I mean, God, being board certified in 3 specialties is phenomenal. And you created that into a niche, and that's really what you developed into your brand. So I think that's really exciting. One question comes to mind, and without getting into too much of the details, because I'm sure some of this is confidential, but did you have any issues with your restricted covenant when you were transitioning out of your the academic setting or your employment role into independence? How did that play into some of your decision making as you transitioned into an independent provider?
Yeah, no, I had one, and it definitely played a role. That was one of the obstacles that I was facing when I was trying to make the decision of whether to continue working in my academic position or to jump into private practice. It played a role because I have the non-compete is for a 15-mile radius from the hospital where I was working before. So where I live in Miami, 15 miles is really not that much. If you go north, east, west, it doesn't matter. You're probably going to be within that 15-mile radius. Luckily, I have one of the satellite clinics where I worked at for the past 5 years was outside that 15-mile radius. And that's where I decided to establish my new clinic. And so my decision to establish my practice where I am certainly had to do with the non-compete that I had. It was also, I thought, a good opportunity because, as I mentioned before, there aren't too many physicians with my specialty in this area. So as an independent provider, and that's also, I think, something that is very important to consider, I did not have much competition where I am compared to if I was in Miami, where there are a lot of other ENT physicians and sleep doctors, where definitely, we would be competing for patient referrals and all that. So
right.
It worked out pretty well. I definitely had that restriction, but at the same time, this was a great opportunity for me to establish an independent practice.
And just to clarify that you said 15, right? 1-5, not
1-5.
5.
Yeah, 1-5.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought you said that. Yeah, so 15 miles isn't really that far. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like, as you were thinking about where to establish your practice, I think, your market review that you did helped you identify, a niche, right? So there was a lack of physicians who probably provided the same level of servicing that you did around sleep disorders. And, that's how you built your brand. So I give you a lot of credit for that. That really makes sense. Where do you see yourself going in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, you just started your practice, right? So maybe it's an unfair question, but it sounds like to me, you're a planner, Carlos. So you probably have an idea of where you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. Any thoughts come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I am right now in the developing process, and I'm trying to build my practice, trying to offer at this point the different service that I can provide without having any other partners or any other provider that it's needed in order to provide the services that I want to offer my patients. So right now I'm in that process of building my own independent practice, bringing in different services that don't depend on anyone else but myself. So I'm in that step right now, and probably for the next year, that's what I plan to continue doing, and to continue expanding my referral source and reaching out to more patients, and continue to promote my brand. And hopefully, it gets to the point where we already have enough patients and we can start already looking at our data and seeing if the integrated services that we are providing for patients with sleep disorders and if that service actually is helpful, for the patient, if it helps lowers the risk of developing other conditions, if it lowers the risk of hospitalizations and different other data points that we are looking at, and on which we plan to continue collecting data in order to measure how effective the service that we are providing are for these patients. And but moving forward, once we show that it works and what we're doing actually saves money in healthcare, and at the same time, that we're providing a good quality care for our patients, then the idea is basically hopefully to partner up, with a larger network, either of hospitals or an ACO or some other group that can help us take what I'm doing right now as an independent provider and expand it to be able to provide the same quality care to a greater number of patients and in different areas. So that's really the goal moving forward.
Well, it sounds exciting, I'll tell you. And yeah. I think just having that vision of where you'd like to take the practice, building on the brand and what you put in place, I think that sounds like just an exciting opportunity for you, certainly in your market. Thinking back, in starting your practice, what's been the most difficult part? So if you were to share with our audience, or, we have a number of physicians who, do listen to our program, maybe thinking about getting into an independent practice. What's been the most difficult part of that journey for you?
Well, I'll start on a personal level. Overcoming the fear of doing this on your own, I think has been probably the most challenging.
Right. I can see that. Absolutely. And I think that's for any person that's, an entrepreneurial, starting your own business, right? It's making that initial jump into a solo business.
Definitely. So, yeah, that was, especially when you are in a situation as an employee where you feel like you have certain things, that give you a lot of security. You have a family, that taking a risk, it's something that you think about it more than when you're young and you don't have anyone that depends on you. So definitely overcoming that fear of wanting of leaving, a very secure position and jumping into the unknown. It's something that I feel is a great challenge. But once you make that decision, I think that the level of satisfaction that you feel at a personal level is just a driving force for you to keep moving forward. However, challenges that I've faced and that I think are definitely challenges that can be dealt with. First of all, the negotiation with the contracts. We all know that, when you're part of a larger group, you have a lot more leverage to negotiate contracts with the insurance companies. So that's something that I found, and I'm still in that process, but I found that's a little bit harder.
Negotiating with the payers is the tough part, right?
Yes.
Because obviously that's what drives your income. And like you said, you're an independent provider, you don't have as much leverage. So I could see that being probably the biggest thing to overcome for independent providers. Not impossible, but I do think it is a challenge, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is definitely a challenge. But if you want to stick to the idea of being an independent provider, I think that you have to come up with a plan, as I mentioned before, of providing a cohesive program and services in a way that you can then show the insurance companies that what you're doing helps them save money, and that what you're doing, actually, you're providing a unique quality of care, and type of service that helps the insurance plans and the members of their group. Or the same thing for the hospital systems, right? So the collection of data over time, I think it's an essential component in being able to grow as an independent provider. Certainly, we don't have the leverage at the beginning when we start our practice to negotiate with the insurance companies the way that a larger group does. But again, you have the flexibility to do things in a way that you think makes sense and that would improve the quality of care that you are providing compared to other clinics. And then you can go and show that, to the different networks that you want to partner up with in the future. And that certainly can lead to better rates and more profit for you as an independent provider.
Right. I mean, it really comes down to you positioning your value proposition.
You have to show them that you have value. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So for some of the physicians, as I mentioned, that are listening to our program, that are maybe considering joining either an independent group or starting their own practice, couple thoughts around, say, some final advice that you might give to some of these physicians?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you want to go independent, you have to make a point of being different. And by being different, I mean not doing things that are experimental or, that we don't know if it's going to work or not. It's just being able to offer different services to treat a specific problem that you specialize on or that you focus on, but in a way that it's cohesive. In my case, for example, I found that many patients with sleep disorders, when they go see a sleep doctor, many times they are treated, either if they go see a clinician, they're treated with a CPAP machine. If they go see an ENT, they're offered, surgery. But there is no integration really of the services. And that's why, I decided to incorporate into my practice the clinical aspect of sleep medicine, the surgical, but also the obesity management, in order to be able to address and attack the root causes of the issues that these patients have. So I think developing those services that make sense, and that are cohesive between them, it's important so that you have a program, that it's easy for the patients to follow. I think it's what we were talking about before, establishing good relationship with the referring physicians and the hospital networks in your area is very important, because that's what's going to help your practice grow. Another thing that I found that is key and that I've been very strategic about is in keeping your costs as low as possible, and to stay focused on how you want to grow and also to grow slowly. And I don't mean sacrificing the quality of care that you're offering or you want to do. I just, what I try to do is basically understand where I want to go and find for potential ways to be able to provide the same quality of care without having to spend as much money, as one could. And that includes buying instruments for your clinic. That includes services that you want to offer, buying equipment, the lease and the size of the clinic where you provide care. I feel that a common mistake that some independent providers might make is that you want to grow too fast. Right. And then you start off, with a lot of expenses, and then it makes it difficult for you to grow. And I feel that if you are able to provide the care that you want to provide and do the things that you want to do at the lowest possible cost that you can afford, then, that's a great recipe for success and to continue growing, right? Because you're always going to have some capital on your side in order to invest in the things that are going to help bring value to your program.
Right. Well, and I think, that's an important point. You have to stay true to the vision, right? And to the plan. And I think, sometimes we all, I think, get anxious and want to move fast, right? You want to get to that end result quick. But in some cases, I think having patience with the process is probably the most important element and is probably the hardest thing to really overcome, right? Because, we're anxious and we want to move forward and we want to be successful and so forth. So I can see how that really comes into play. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, Dr. Torre, I want to thank you for your time today. Your story is fascinating, and I wish you a tremendous amount of luck in your practice. I feel like, you're positioned for success. It sounds like the way that, you've shared your story today, you're going about this the right way. You've certainly have done your homework in planning, and I think have done your homework in establishing your niche for yourself and really a great service within the practice. So I commend you for that and certainly wish you a lot of luck going forward.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate you a lot, and as well as the rest of your team. And it's really been my pleasure to be able to be part of this podcast and to continue collaborating with you.
Great. Well, thank you. And I'd love to have you back, maybe in another 6 months or in a year. I'd love to come back and hear your story and see how things have gone. Would you do that for us?
That would be great. Great. Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate that. So just in summary, as we've talked about, it is scary for physicians who are in an employment setting and maybe considering moving into an independent role. But I think, as Dr. Torre said, the key to it is really planning. It's being true to the vision. It's understanding where you want to go. One important point, though, that he brought up, which I think is the foundation of any strong business, it's the relationships that you develop along the way. And one of the things that Dr. Torre did that I think was particularly impressive was he established good relationships, not just with his patients, but with his referring providers and with the new hospital that he started to, that he was going to affiliate with. Those are keys to his success. You can't build a business on your own. You need to make sure that you're having that relationship. You can't build a practice on your own. You need to make sure you build the relationships with the physicians in the hospitals and so forth. So wonderful discussion today. I want to thank Dr. Torre again for his time. Until next time, I'm Daniel Marino. Thank you and have a great day.
We want to thank you for listening to Value-Based Care Insights podcast by Lumina Health Partners. Lumina is your partner on a journey to value-based care and all the pivots and challenges our industry faces daily. To learn more about us, visit us on luminahp.com. If you found value in today's conversation, subscribe to us on all major podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify, and leave us feedback. Be sure to check out our show notes at luminahp.com/insights. Join us again where we continue to take a deep dive into what lies ahead and invite conversations with some of our colleagues and industry thought leaders on new trends that are emerging and how we continue to navigate and thrive. Until then, have a great day and stay safe.